This is Kugan Cassius for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. It's weighing day, Ruiz Joshua, here in Saudi Arabia. I'm joined by Joe Markowski of Dazn. How are you, mate?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, coming to the end of a long week, but all good.
It's good to see you back in your normal get-up because you looked fantastic last night. Traditional Saudi get-up, no black tie, so you went local. I like that.
Yeah, I got instruction from Omar, who kind of pointed me in the right way if I wasn't going to wear a black tie. And to be fair, the conventional black tie, no one was in it really. Everyone was in kind of suits.
Yeah. But you look great. You snuck into the party as well.
I didn't sneak in, I was invited. There's a massive difference.
Okay.
Let me ask you and kind of track back to maybe 4 months ago when you were first told about this rematch taking place in Saudi Arabia. A lot of people, the first time we all heard about it, were very sceptical over, is it going to happen, how's it going to work, it's new territory, kind of. So what was your initial response to that?
Well, the first I heard of it was Eddie saying that he'd had an offer that he didn't think was real. He didn't think it would come through, and I think his words were, "Don't worry, mate, this fight will not happen in Saudi." So here we are in Riyadh 4 months later. No, look, we're on record. We would have preferred it in the US, obviously, for a number of reasons, namely that it's bigger for our business if it happens domestically in one of our markets. And the US is our biggest boxing market. We had sort of got our heads around the fact it would likely be in Cardiff. Didn't love that, but understood it. Obviously, given the Sky-AJ relationship, the fact that AJ's British is obvious. And then this happens. I don't love it, being honest, but here we are. And I have to say, I went to the stadium this morning with Eddie. They've done a fantastic job. The hospitality's been first class. The welcome from the Saudi team has been brilliant. And it's going to be an efficient afternoon of business for us in the US. So we're making the best of it. But going forward, obviously, we're going to keep pushing for big fights to happen in the US because that's where it's most effective for us.
I like how honest you are there, considering we're 2 days away from the event and we've seen kind of how this has transpired over the last 4 months, especially with the venue that they've built and they're going to knock down after the tennis. But why do you kind of say you don't love it? Is it because it's not in the US?
Yeah, a fight will be bigger for us if it happens on the time zone that's best suited to the American audience. We're going out in the US 4 o'clock Eastern time, 1 o'clock Pacific time. A load of Andy Ruiz fans in the US are going to be based on the West Coast and in Texas, given that's a big sort of Mexican-American hub. So 1 o'clock in the afternoon is not an optimal time to watch a fight sports event. Fights are bigger at prime time. That's an obvious statement again. So primarily that's why we would prefer it in the US. It's a bigger night for us in the US, and we want big nights to continue growing our subscription base. That all said, the hype for this fight in the US is significantly bigger than any afternoon fight that I've been involved in or seen numbers for. Jimmy Kimmel had an Andy Ruiz segment on his very popular late night talk show last night. It's transcending hardcore boxing fans and the casual boxing fans, and given the economics of it, I'm very, very confident this will be one of our most effective and efficient fights we've done in the US so far. So I'm made more comfortable than I thought I would be. Given all of that, I'd still prefer the fight to be in New York or Vegas or LA, and that's not going to change going forward. We want big fights to happen in our domestic market.
I thought you explained that actually pretty well, actually. I did understand everything you just said, so yeah, I was like, where are you going with this?
I dumbed it down a bit for you, Cougs. There you go.
We didn't all go to private school. Joe, I want to kind of move away from Joshua Ruiz for the second, but last month in LA, we all saw kind of everyone's platforms, and I'm sure obviously you all know different with Dazn, these incredible, almost unrealistic stats for boxing which occurred with KSI and Logan Paul. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, the one that really stands out to me that I can talk about is the countdown show. We did a countdown show on the night building up to the main event, so 4 hours I think it was the broadcast. 25 million viewers globally on YouTube, on our YouTube, on Matchroom YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook channels, on KSI and Logan Paul's channels. And that is proper brand awareness for us, for Matchroom, for the sport of boxing. And we dropped the sport of boxing right in front of one of the most engaged and largest online fan bases there is out there. So in a number of ways, including for me personally, subscription numbers for us, huge success. Absolutely whetted the appetite of our business and everyone involved, Eddie included, to go and do more with these guys. We're working as we speak on more fights like that for early next year and later in the year. We've got a great relationship, with KSI and Logan. I'm seeing both of them in the next 2 weeks to talk about what's next. They're fantastic partners, and it was just a special event to work on. You were there, you saw it. It properly cut through. Mainstream media covered it. We had interviews with the New York Times, CNN, the BBC, the Times of London, Sky News. My grandma was talking about it. My mum was talking about it. It properly cut through. So, I think it's brilliant. I think it's good for the sport of boxing that there's this sort of outlet we can use to do more of what boxing needs to, which is grow itself and evolve itself to meet the younger audience. Boxing's not done enough of that in the last 20 years, in our opinion. I've said that to you before. This is a route to introducing the sport to a young and engaged digital audience, and we're gonna keep working on that.
Can you be any more specific about how many subscribers this attracted to Dazn for that period?
No, I can't. We don't talk about numbers publicly, as you know. You've tried maybe 3 or 4 times to get it out of me, but all I would say is in subscription generating terms, it was a very successful night for us, right up there with our most successful nights we've done to date in the US.
Is there any way of telling what percentage of people possibly dropped out this month as opposed to the ones that subscribed for the event?
There's ways to do it. Again, we're not going to talk about that publicly. I know that number. You will never know that number.
What about a percentage then?
No, we don't talk about that kind of stuff publicly. What I would say on that front, though, is a significant percentage of the audience that watched that fight were real boxing fans, i.e. those we brought in for the previous boxing events we've done. So Canelo fans watched it, AJ fans watched it, the fans that we attribute to proper boxing events, despite all of the chatter online beforehand and people like yourself initially, maybe not you personally, but colleagues of yours in the media slating it as a disgrace to the sport and whatever else. A load of those fans tuned in, and didn't just tune in for Haney and Billy Joe. They watched those fights and they stayed around for the main event. I remember I was sat with Eddie and Frank front row, and we had, I think, Billy Joe's team behind us. And as the fight played out, they went from being sort of like, interested to being like, KSI's won that round, or Logan's won that round. Knockdown shouldn't have had 2 points. Like, proper boxing people, properly engaged emotionally in the fight, and that's just, for me, was another little sort of telltale sign that this is cut through. And the guys performed well, they trained well, they took it properly seriously, and the whole thing, all the ingredients came together, and it was great. So, as I say, appetite is definitely whetted to do more on that front.
Is it fair to say that putting on fights like this with KSI, Logan Paul, and any future fights is probably about 80 or 90% marketing strategy from Dazn ahead of any kind of pure boxing element?
Yeah, but I think it definitely benefits our business primarily. And Sky's, to be honest, because Sky did a big number, I'm sure, of pay-per-view buys on that fight, even though it was at 5 a.m. But, as I keep saying, boxing fans may not love it, don't have to watch it. What it does do is bring a huge new audience into the sport of boxing. Other sports have done lots of different things to evolve themselves, and, cricket in 2020, 15 years ago, pure cricket fans hated that. They thought it was an abomination. It's now the biggest revenue driver in the sport. It brought a whole load of new young people and made them interested in cricket. Boxing needs to do things like that to evolve itself, or it will struggle to remain relevant in amongst the younger crowd. You've got to engage young fans. You've got to do things that they're interested in. You've got to bring them in whatever way is going to be effective. This was a very effective way of bringing a load of 16 to 25-year-olds primarily into the sport of boxing. And if 20% of them, 30% of them stick around on Dazn and on Sky and watch more boxing and watch IFL TV videos and become fans of Devin Haney, become fans of Anthony Joshua, that's a service of good we've done for the sport of boxing. So, obviously it works for our business. That's been proven. but there's knock-on effects that are fantastic for the sport of boxing and promoters and fighters, to be honest.
I don't know if you've seen the latest bets on odds on Sky Bet for KSI's next opponent. Have you seen this?
No, I'm not really a betting man.
So
especially not this week in this country.
I know, clearly not, obviously. But Sky Bet put out a list of possible and potential opponents for KSI.
Were you on the list?
I was 12-1 ahead of Joe Weller.
Well, I say not a gambling man, but that sounds like smart money to me. I might be able to influence that. We have a little chat about that afterwards.
It was quite unclear after that fight, Joe, whether KSI would even have another fight, because he was kind of putting the feelers out there that unless it was something that big, he kind of shut down the idea of a rematch, or another rematch, should we say, with Logan Paul, but he kind of shut down that idea. But then it was very unclear. Talking to Vidal Riley the other day, he's unclear whether he will actually fight again. And he said it's got to be something that is A, financially mind-blowing, and B, something is kind of bigger than what he's already been fighting in.
It'd be hard to do, right? Because it was huge. I'm seeing him next week in London to talk about things like that. And Eddie and I will talk to him and we'll see what we want to do. Being candid, my advice to him will be, let's do more. He's had a few weeks, he's had a holiday. I don't know where his head's going to be at. We'll speak and we'll see what he wants to do. But my hope and my recommendation to him would be, we've built a hell of a momentum with this first event, let's do more. And there's benefit to all of us, including for you, for your viewers and your subscribers on YouTube, in investing the time and the resources and making more fights like that. Let's see what he says.
Talking to Eddie Hearn since the fight really, he sort of suggested that there's a possibility of Jake Paul, Logan's brother, fighting on the Miami card coming up in January. There was talk about him fighting an Ethan Gibb. Where is that at the moment?
We're talking, and I think you'll hear from us hopefully in the next few days on something around that, or close to that. So yeah, working on that, and I think that's a natural next step for us to take. Good relationship with Jake we built during the he
had a few words to say about you after the fight, didn't he?
Yeah, he accused me of rigging the fight, which he's since apologised for. Now Dazon's got a growing power in boxing, but ability or willingness to rig fights definitely does not meet that description right now, and I personally have no interest in doing that. But a bit like you being called out as a potential KSI opponent, I had a bit of, are you a potential Jake Paul opponent? So if the business want to give me 4 months off and a million quid, I'll consider it, but I don't think I'm really in fighting shape at the moment. So we'll see what happens with that. We're working on it, and I think that if anything does happen, that will probably be the next one we look to do. I have to say though, the fact that we've spent probably 80% of this interview talking about YouTube boxing excites me.
Well, I'm on YouTube. It's of massive interest to me. I know people were kind of giving me stick about why are you covering that fight. Well, A, it is a professional show, but we're on YouTube, so these are YouTubers fighting.
Well, did your subscriber numbers pop in that week by a considerable number? I'm sure.
By a considerable number.
Yeah. Will you talk about your subscriber numbers?
No, but my numbers are kind of out there. They're visible, so that part of it's irrelevant. But we did see a massive subscriber boost. We saw a huge month, as in terms of view-wise for us. So, I'm not opposed to not seeing this, but
probably explains why Umar's looking at flash jumpers at the airport, isn't it? Revenue numbers on the ads sales went through the roof in November for you guys, I imagine. So you're welcome for that.
Yeah, we don't talk about revenue here at IFL.
We'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm hopeful we can make more fights happen pretty quickly in that world, because it worked in a number of different ways. It worked, and there's everyone's keen to do more.
Just a final one on this. If we hypothetically say next year on Dazn in America with Matchroom, I'm just pointing this out there, 12 shows, right? How often would you like to see a YouTube fight featured on one of these cards?
Regularly, because it helps retain subscribers.
Do you mean every card?
No, I mean I wouldn't go that far. No. Look, to be honest, we're not just going to work with any and every YouTuber or celebrity either, because I'm sure there's a list of 20 celebs we could click our fingers right now and have, people willing to do it. But what all of the build-up negativity from friends of yours in the boxing media focused on it's going to be a mockery, it's going to be a disgrace to the sport, these guys are not fighters, they're not going to follow or respect the sport. Lots of celebrities and YouTubers would probably do exactly that. They wouldn't train properly, wouldn't go pro, they wouldn't hire trainers, they wouldn't change their diet, they wouldn't change their lifestyles, they'd be out doing whatever they do on a Thursday and Friday night all the way through camp. That would make a mockery of the sport. We're only going to do fights with people, celebrities, YouTubers, whoever. One, who have the reach and have the marketing clout, and two, who have the proper commitment to the sport, because it's not no joke. It's a very dangerous sport. People lose their lives in this sport, sadly, and we're not going to put people, fighters, ourselves, Matchroom, anyone at risk if we don't think the commitment's there to doing it. So I don't think there's enough volume of celebrities or YouTubers to make 12 fights a year, even if we wanted to, which we don't. I think a healthy sprinkling of YouTube events in our schedule will do what we want it to do. Pump subscriber numbers, retain them, but also, more importantly for the long term, bring in a load of young people who hopefully become fans of the sport of boxing and maintain proper boxing subscriptions with us and with other broadcasters around the world.
Where does quality of spectacle come into this? Is it important to you that the guys not just go outside Logan Paul, but that can actually fight? And does that make sense?
That's what I was just saying. They've got to take it seriously. They've got to perform well. We've got to be confident they will treat it at the same level of severity that KSI and Logan Paul did. Like, it was a competitive fight, right? They're pros. It was their second and third fight. I think Logan's second, KSI's third. They're not world champions, but they took it bloody seriously and they performed pretty well. They both got up off the canvas. We want people like that. We're not going to do it with any, Tom, Dick or Harry who just wants a bit of 15 minutes in the limelight. So we're on the lookout for celebrities who are committed to this properly.
Moving away from this, Joe, your pricing criteria for the US, are we sticking with that? Is that likely to change in 2020?
No plan to change right now. In the market we're in, we are bloody good value. If you look at US cable subscriptions, $200 a month for a sports package at least. Pay-per-view boxing still $80, $90 a pop, maybe 70 sometimes, but there's lots of pay-per-view events happening. Wilder Ortiz being the most recent. So the cost of being a boxing fan everywhere else is very, very expensive. For $100 a year or $20 a month, that's a pretty good deal in the US. And I know obviously British fans, the majority of your audience, they're not forced to spend that kind of money with Sky or with other broadcasters in the UK. In the US, the cost of being a boxing fan, the cost of being a sports fan, but specifically a boxing fan, are astronomical. We're trying to change that, and we're going to continue fighting and pushing to maintain that for as long as we can. So no plans right now to change our pricing model.
We'll finish off by talking about Dazn coming to the UK in the near future. Any updates, any progression?
No, look, as I said to you many times before, we've got a team of people in London who are always looking at new markets. No plans right now. We're a British business. We know the UK well. Maybe one day at the right time we'll look at it. But right now I'm focused on growing the markets that we're in currently. For me personally, that's the US and Canada. And this weekend's going to be a great weekend for us in both the US and Canada.
Joe, the first time I ever interviewed you was roughly just over a year ago, and I asked you about this same thing about Dazn coming to UK, and you pretty much gave me exactly the same answer back then. We're like 14 months on. You can't expect me to believe that there is no plans for Dazn to come to the UK in the next 12 months.
That's what I'm asking you to believe, because that's what I'm telling you. There's no specific plan for us to come to the UK in the next 12 months, no. When there is, Coogan, as and when there is, you'll be the first to know, mate. Maybe after Eddie Hearn.
Maybe after Eddie Hearn. I don't believe you, but I understand that if there's stuff going on in the background that you are working on, you can't talk about. I get that as well, but Yeah, I'm not buying that one, but that's fine. That's your answer, and I'll accept it.
Thank you.
Any new signings coming?
Any new signings coming? Yes. Watch this space with our friend Mr. Hearn. Not too distant future. A big one.
How adventurous and how aggressive do you go in 2020, as in regards to bringing new talent and stars to the zone for boxing?
We will continue to invest heavily in new signings with Golden Boy and with Matchroom and with Triple G Promotions, and we will make lots and lots of big fights. I hope 2 massive fights for Canelo Alvarez. There's potentially some British considerations there in that list. The zone middleweight, super middleweight roster is obviously the strongest in the sport. Billy Joe's name's in there, Callum Smith's name's in there. We'll see what happens. We'd obviously love to make Canelo Triple G3. That's a definite priority for us in 2020. Hopefully 2 massive fights for Anthony Joshua after a successful win this weekend. And then, around that, a really strong schedule of month-on-month big fights for Devin Haney, big fights for Ryan Garcia, maybe the 2 of them together. Lots of big fights all over the US and globally for us. Eddie's going to try and push us for a boxing deal in every market that we're currently in. He's launching Dazn Spain, or Matchroom Spain, on Thursday or Friday night next week. You going to that?
No, next week we are at York Hall on the Thursday. I'm in New York next week actually for the Top Rank show.
Yeah, nice.
Sorry.
Yeah, look, lots of big fights for DAZN and Matchroom globally, lots of big fights for us and Golden Boy in the US. I think more of the same. Probably from my perspective, hopefully with 2 big fight seasons. You've seen our first fight season that we're getting to the end of now this weekend, a spring fight season, and then what I'd call an autumn-winter fight season. The Americans would call it a fall fight season, but 2 more of them packed with big fights that continue to grow our subscription base.
All right, just FYI, I've got a DAZN interview hit list that had 3 people on it.
Your friend Skipper's here this week.
My friend Skipper, well, he was one of the people on the list, which you delivered.
I kindly arranged for you, as I would.
Of course, this
You
was...
still don't trust me. You still don't trust me on the UK answer?
No, I'm talking about your answer on camera, not for what if I asked you off camera. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I would say the exact same answer off camera.
Fair enough. If that's what you're going to tell me off camera, I'm just saying. But you're on camera now, so I'm very aware of that. The other 2 people on the list, yeah? So let's see how good you are. I mean, I'm not expecting miracles right away, but over the next sort of year or so, if you could pull these off, right? So one of them is Sylvester Stallone.
Oh yeah, me and Sly are very good mates, so I'll drop him a text now.
Well, he's kind of doing bits for DAZN, so...
He's doing bits for his own. I will make some inquiries around that. I need to see the questions you want to ask him first, though.
That's all right. That will work well for that. Right, here's the 3rd one. Could you get the 3rd one?
No, your interview with Skipper was hilarious because when we speak, or you speak to anyone else in boxing, it's a very casual. There's no notes. You're just talking. You're very good off the top of your heads. It's a conversation. With Skipper, you rocked up at his apartment with a little set of revision cards that I used to make for GCSE exams.
No, I didn't. Oh, on my phone.
And you literally went, "Hello, John. Question 1." And regardless of what he said, you just said, "Thank you. Question 2." And you went through this list very methodically. So hopefully it'll be a more sort of traditional Coogan when you get in front of Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, it's not that kind of interview. That was a different kind of interview. Can you guess who the 3rd person that's kind of affiliated with DAZN would be?
A member of staff or
No, they're not a member of staff.
American?
No, not American, and not in boxing. But they were with a boxer the other day.
British?
Not British.
Oh, Mourinho.
Mourinho? No.
He's an ambassador for us.
Is he really? Oh, he'd be definitely 4th for this, but not him. There's another famous Portuguese person affiliated with DAZN.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Well, there's an idea. I didn't even think of him. Surely he's out.
You want to talk about social numbers? I know you've had a good November, but he's batting in a slightly higher league than you, so no promises. I think Stallone's more likely. I'll ask my friend Jamie Horowitz to try and organise that one for you.
All right, listen, I'm just saying, a lot of people we interview are out of my league. It doesn't mean I can't get to them.
Present company excluded.
right, we'll leave that one there. Joe, thank you very much for talking to IFL TV. Let's hope Joshua can pull it off this weekend and kind of erase the memory of June the 1st in New York.
Well, the flight back to London on Sunday night, if he wins, is going to be good fun.
Certainly hope so. Joe Markowski, thank you very much for talking to IFL TV, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Is special. Absolute dynamite.